What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to continue with our early 2020 NFL draft prep by taking a look at the top 10 wide receivers for the upcoming 2020 NFL draft class. Now, so far, this has been, without a shadow of a doubt, the hardest position to narrow the list down to 10. I think there's probably about 20 wide receivers in this year's draft class that can make impacts on their teams in the 2020 season, which is outstanding depth. And you know, I'm an Eagles fan. Eagles desperately need help at wide receiver. There's more than enough options here with the plethora of picks that the Philadelphia Eagles have to assess and address those needs. I know there's a lot of other teams that need wide receivers. Green Bay, Baltimore, Jets. You can look at Jacksonville, Buffalo. There's a lot of talent out there to be had. But yeah, really tough to get down to my top 10. And I would like to say between 8 and 15 between now and when I release my final rankings after the Combine and after the Senior Bowl and all that stuff, that there's going to be some shuffling around. This is just the best 10 right now. So before we jump into the top 10, I do have 4 honorable mentions, guys that were just on the cusp of cracking the top 10. First up, I have Tyler Johnson from Minnesota. Now, the issue with him is it appears that there's some red flags. Matt Miller from Bleacher Report has kind of hinted that there's some red flags with him. I don't know what particularly those are, but they're just enough for me to just, for right now, until more solid info comes out, just keep him on the outside looking in. But I loved the Minnesota wide receiver duo between him and Rashad Bateman. I think he's a really solid wide receiver. We also got Michael Pittman Jr. from USC. Really productive year last year in 2019. Big-time possession wide receiver. I think he could be a riser from the Combine, like Kenny Galladay was for me a couple years ago. Brian Edwards from South Carolina. This guy really underrated. Limited passing attack in the last couple of years at South Carolina, but he has wow catchability. I'm very interested to see how well he tests at the Combine. And then we have Jalen Reagor, a guy that if you're paying attention to the draft, might be on a lot of people's top 10 lists. I just get a lot of Nelson Agholor vibes, so there's going to be a little bit of bias maybe because I've been burned like Agholor, because to me he looks like a faster Nelson Agholor. So I kind of have that going against him right now. But again, very interested to look at more of his tape, especially in this offseason and draft process. So without further ado, jumping into my top 10 wide receivers. At number 10, I have Devin Duvernay, 5'10", 205, from Texas. I currently have a late day 2 grade on him. I think he's going to go somewhere in the 3rd round, but I think he's going to bring great speed. I think he's going to have high 4.3s. He had that at high school when he was, getting ready to go to the University of Texas. So, given the fact he's bulked up just a little bit, I still think he's a shot to get into the 4.3s. I think he's yak specialist, getting the ball in his hands, especially in the slot. Very powerful, built like a running back, runs like a running back, and he's going to make a lot of guys miss in open space. The negative is just not a defined route running tree right now. Not as crisp as you'd like to see. I mean, I'm not an expert when it comes to evaluating wide receivers, but you can definitely see on some of the tape. Especially, I remember the LSU game. Well, he looked pretty good, but wasn't really that crisp. It kind of felt like his athletic ability was overcompensating for a lack of technical ability at this point. But I still am a big fan of Devin Duvernay, and I usually don't like Texas players. My pro comparison for him, he's a faster Christian Kirk. And we see what Christian Kirk has been able to do with the Arizona Cardinals. I think fits for Duvernay could be Philadelphia, New Orleans, or Green Bay. And when I go through some of these fits, especially for wide receivers, there's so many teams that need wide receivers. These are just fits that jump off the board as immediate, impacts. I think the guys will fit in and kind of get seamlessly adjusted. But there's plenty. You can pretty much add 10 teams for all the fits here for all these wide receivers. Going to wide receiver number 9, we have Denzel Mims, 6'2", 205 out of Baylor. You've been watching my videos talking about the draft. I'm a big fan of Denzel Mims. I think he's going to be an early day 3 pick, but the value is there. He's a jump ball specialist. He's a great athlete, brings a track and field background, solid production throughout his career at Baylor. The negatives, he doesn't have a refined route running tree. It's at least his comparison to some of the 2nd round guys that might go in the 1st round, day 2 picks, but he's pretty damn close. Only thing that my biggest negative for him is I watched a lot of Baylor football last year, and it felt like, outside of that first Oklahoma game, every game against a big opponent, he kind of got taken away. He wouldn't take those games over, and I kind of hold it against players. When your team is like Baylor, are they a good team? They were definitely really competitive in the Big 12 this year, but I want to see big-time players step up in big-time games, and I didn't really see that from Denzel Mims in 2019, so I had to knock him down my rankings here just a little bit to number 9. But for him, pro comparison, the Draft Network, I use that a lot for a lot of my draft assets. They compared him to Kenny Galladay. I think he's a Kenny Galladay ceiling. I don't think he's quite at Kenny Galladay's level, even when Kenny Galladay was a rookie. But I really do like Denzel Mims. I think Fitz, Buffalo, and Indianapolis will be my top 2 spots for Denzel Mims. Wide receiver number 8, really lower on him, right now anyways, is Laviska Shenault, 6'2", 220 out of Colorado. I kind of have day 1, early day 2 grade. Someone's going to fall in love with him. But for right now, I'm just on the outside looking in. I mean, you look at him, he's an elite athlete, a powerful runner, an offensive weapon. Looks like a running back when he gets the balls in his hand. Yards after catchability out the wazoo. But his route running doesn't look particularly refined. His production's not there. His hands are solid, but not a strength. So, I'm looking at a guy right now that I think has a high ceiling. I think that if you go to a team that's proven to develop wide receivers, by all means, get him with a first-round pick. His athletic profile is there. But right now, I see, a slightly better prospect than Cordero Patterson was coming into Tennessee. He's more of a offensive weapon than he is a wide receiver right now. And I just don't know with how good the wide receiver class is this year that you could take a guy that needs a lot of work, that needs a lot of smoothing, rounding out those edges, over guys that are going to be able to make impacts right away as an X or a Y or even in the slot for your team. Versus, I don't know. It's just, maybe my opinion will change. I love looking at wide receivers when they do the combine drills, on the field drills. I will be the first one to tell you that I maybe put more stock into that, just looking at the eye test than some of the other people. But for me, Shenault needs a little bit of work to do. I'm still saying he can go in the first round, but for me, I'm not as high as him as some of the other players. And I do think, right now, to me, he's more of a Cordero Patterson than he is kind of anything else. Fits for him, though, Buffalo or Green Bay. I think you're going to be able to get production from him right away as, obviously he has great size. Buffalo needs size at wide receiver. Or I think he's going to be best utilized out of the slot. And I think Green Bay needs a lot of help at the slot wide receiver position. Going to wide receiver number 7, I have Justin Jefferson, 6'2", 190 out of LSU. I think he's going to be an early day 2 selection. You look at the positives. Versatile route runner, really, really good hands. Came on this year with LSU with Joe Burrow. I mean, a little bit overshadowed by how good Jamar Chase is. But Jamar Chase is probably going to be a top 10 pick in 2021. Justin Jefferson is still really, really good. I don't know, because I go to the negative, the speed. I don't know if he's going to have the speed to sneak into the first round. But I do think he's going to be an early day 2 pick. Should go probably later second round. And a big question when you look at a negative and it comes up as speed is, are they going to be able to get separation consistently at the NFL level? And for Justin Jefferson, I mean, there's some questions about that. Pro comparison, I have a Keenan Allen ceiling. I think he can be, one of those guys. Keenan Allen actually tested okay at the combine. I think a little bit better long speed for Keenan Allen at this point when he was coming out of Cal. But generally speaking, I think they can have similar careers. I think Justin Jefferson, a really nice wide receiver prospect. Fits, I have Buffalo, Jacksonville, and maybe the Ravens could pick him at the tail end of the first round if they fit, because he just kind of fits what they don't have right now. But I do think right now I would have to grade him as a second round pick. Go to wide receiver number 6. I have Brandon Aiyuk, 5'11", 200 pounds out of Arizona State. I currently have an early day 2 grade. I think he's going to go early in the second round. You look at what he brings. I think he's going to be probably low 4.4, high 4.3 type speed. When you look at this landscape of the NFL, I mean, they've always kind of wanted it, but when you see a team like the Kansas City Chiefs make the playoffs, all-out speed at wide receiver, that's kind of going to be the next trend. I think guys that are going to be really, really fast might get bumped up ahead of guys that might have more proven production at the college level, might be better route runners at the college level. I think speed is going to take top priority in this year's draft, and Aiyuk is going to benefit from that the most. He's a legit deep threat. The negatives is production. I think he has somewhat inconsistent hands, but for a legit deep threat, for a lot of hype right now around scouting communities that they might actually, the NFL might grade him better than N'Keal Harry, who went in the first round, and that was reported at the Senior Bowl. Definitely going to keep an eye on his draft stock. My pro comparison is Will Fuller out of the Houston Texans for Aiyuk. I think Fitz could be Philadelphia, Denver, or Baltimore. Go to wide receiver number 5. We have KJ Hamler, 5'9", 180 out of Penn State. I think he again is going to be an early day 2 pick. Could potentially slip into the first round with a really, really good combine. But I think right now, early second round pick. You look at KJ Hamler, another guy. I think he's going to bring legit 4.3 speed. I would be very, very surprised if he gets in the 4.4s. Deep ball tracking, yard after catch ability. You get this guy in the slot, he is going to be an absolute mismatch. Negatives is his size. He's really small. He's every bit 5'9", 180. And I think that you could say inconsistent hands. There were a little bit of drops when I was looking through some of the gameplays from Penn State last season. But still, I think the speed, the upside, the ceiling can compensate for that. My pro comparison for KJ Hamler is Brandon Cooks. And when I'm looking at fits, if I'm Green Bay and KJ Hamler's still sitting there in the first round, he might be the guy I pull the trigger on. because I think a guy like KJ Hamler will be able to complement what they have in Devontae Adams and give a weapon that Aaron Rodgers really hasn't had in quite some time. Or Philadelphia, again, New Orleans. You're going to see Eagles on a lot of these. Anyone that's going to run fast, I'm going to say Philadelphia is a great fit. But I think New Orleans, too, they could get a younger type of Ted Ginn style wide receiver for their offense. Going to wide receiver number 4, we have T. Higgins, 6'4", 210, out of Clemson. I think it's going to be a late day 1 pick, somewhere in the first round. Anyone that needs a big body possession guy, he's going to tick off that box. Jump ball possession is it's his bread and butter. He's very, very sound when it comes to that. I think he's a little passive. I'd like to see a bigger wide receiver that's physical, that loves to get in a guy's face. I don't quite see that with him. I think he's kind of reminds me a little bit of Alshon Jeffrey, where he's a good jump ball guy. He will bully receivers with his jump ball ability, but he's not like a super physical style wide receiver. I think there could be separation issues at the next level with his lack of straight line speed, which is always kind of a knock, which in my comparison it's an easy comparison. I think Mike Williams, when he was coming out of Clemson, pretty much had the same kind of aura around him that T. Higgins currently has, and I think it's a fair comparison. And Mike Williams has caught on really, really well in the NFL, has been a nice weapon for the LA Chargers. So I think a fit for T. Higgins. Jacksonville, potentially with their second pick if they don't get a wide receiver with the first. Buffalo, I think he's a terrific wide receiver. Buffalo desperately needs size at wide receiver. Or maybe the Indianapolis Colts, if, I don't know, they don't want to get a quarterback or something like that in the first round. But I think maybe the Colts, that's a little early for T. Higgins. Maybe second round, trade it, I don't know. But I think he's a good fit there. Going to wide receiver number 3, we have Henry Ruggs III, 6 feet tall, 180 pounds out of Alabama. He's going to be a first round pick. I don't know where yet. But I would assume higher than lower because he's legit shot at getting 4.2s. Any run time you run a 4.2, when I especially think the trend is teams prioritizing speed this year more than any other year. Henry Ruggs, he's going to go fairly high with that legit 4.2 speed. Yards after catch ability is insane. Underrated hands. No one really talks about the poly. Like when you look at him, you just go, oh, deep threat. You beat man, this and that. I think his hands are really, really solid as well. The negatives is his frame. He's just not that big of a wide receiver. 50-50 balls are never going to be a strength. Even though he does have 6 feet tall, he's not like, a guy like KJ Hamler that's just small all around. But I do think you're getting a pure deep threat when it comes to Henry Ruggs. I don't know how much you're going to want to utilize him out of the slot. He's just going to be a guy on the outside. Comparison, Tyreek Light. I mean, Tyreek Hill, anytime you get a really, really fast wide receiver that's good, you're going to compare him to Tyreek. Anytime you get a fast wide receiver that's kind of one-dimensional, you're probably going to compare him more so to a John Ross. I think he's more like Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek Hill's jacked. Tyreek Hill is also very, very muscular, very, very powerful. Don't really think you get that with the Ruggs, but from play style, what they're going to bring to an offense, that is the comparison to Tyreek Hill. Fits, I think Oakland, Philadelphia, and Denver are 3 teams that would definitely love Henry Ruggs' services in the draft. Going to wide receiver number 2, we have CeeDee Lamb, 6'1", 175 out of Oklahoma. I think he's going to be a top 15 pick lock. Positives, jump ball, really, really good jump ball wide receiver, aggressive. Anytime the ball's up in the air, he thinks he can get it. More often than not, he does get it. Really, really good hands. Great route runner. He did have that drop against LSU, but I mean, that game was kind of over. I did not like to see it. He pretty much dropped like a 70-yard touchdown, which I was like, oh, no, that's not good. I'm not going to not remember that when I talk about him in these videos. But generally speaking, CeeDee Lamb, outstanding wide receiver, one of the better wide receiver prospects of the last 5 years. The negatives is just speed. He's not going to have elite speed. I wouldn't actually be shocked to see him running the 4.5s. Is that going to kind of dampen his draft stock when you see all these other guys that might be potentially running in the 4.3s? You see CeeDee Lamb, he's just, by comparison, a little bit slower. That could affect his stock just a little bit, but I see no way that he slips at the top 15. Pro comparison, DeAndre Hopkins light. I don't think he's quite where DeAndre Hopkins was as a prospect coming to Clemson, but it's really, really, really close. And it's hard to make that comparison to DeAndre Hopkins because, now you're talking about God's the second best wide receiver in the league. You're not going to get that out of CeeDee Lamb, but I think the ceiling is right there. He has a DeAndre Hopkins-like ceiling. Fits for CeeDee Lamb, I think Oakland, Jacksonville, or maybe the New York Jets. And then the number 1 wide receiver is going to be Jerry Jeudy, 6'1", 190 out of Alabama. Top 10 pick for me in this year's draft class. His route running is insane. He's a terrific athlete. I don't know if he's going to be a 4.3, but could be pretty close to a 4.3 guy, low 4.4s. Hands are solid. Really nothing bad. There's it's tough to find negative. The only negative I can find is jump ball. Just not a lot of that on tape for Alabama because more often than not he was just running behind guys. The 50-50 jump balls, there's just not a lot of tape to go off of to say that that's a strength of his game. So it's just kind of a question mark more than it is an actual negative. He is a very, very complete wide receiver prospect. I'm comparing him right away to what Chris Godwin is in the NFL right now. I think you get him, you get a guy like Jerry Jeudy, you get a good offense, which usually teams are going to be picking where Jerry Jeudy's going to get drafted. Probably don't have a great offense, but I think he has that ceiling to be a guy right away. Top 10 numbers as a rookie. Very, very high ceiling. So fits for him. I think the Giants, maybe, if they really want to get a game changer and decide not to go on the offensive line at what are they picking, 4 or 5? They could get Jeudy. I think the Jets might be the best landing spot. Get Sam Darnold, his wide receiver 1. So there you go, guys. Those are my wide receiver rankings 2.0. We will be back after the combine and all the other stuff right before the draft to give you my final rankings. But I feel fairly confident, especially with, well, obviously the top 3. I think my top 3 are set in stone. I think from T. Higgins up to really Justin Jefferson, not a lot of fluctuations going to go there. But from Denzel Mims at 8 spot, Laviska Shenault 8, 9, all the way to maybe even arguably up to 20. There could be some big shufflings around. So, we'll keep an eye on. But if I slept on any players that you definitely wanted to see me talk about today, let me know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree. As always, your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.